The true model is the great essence of the invisible and the visible worlds. As to the nature of this one soul, it is the same in all forms. To think it is different in different forms is only a false notion of the world. Once we penetrate beyond forms, it is discovered that all the different forms of the universe are not real differences of soul but different manifestations of one real power. Hence it has always been impossible to speak adequately, to name correctly, or to think correctly of this one soul, the real essence of things, which is unchangeable and indestructible. We therefore name it the true essence or the true likeness or the true reality or model. But all nomenclature of these matters is imperfect, and if one follows superficial thought, the true meaning cannot be found out. Even though we call it the true model, it has no form. It is because language in its extremity fails us that we coin a new term to avoid ordinary ideas. But the nature of this archetype is a reality that cannot be destroyed, for all things are true though they cannot be truly pointed out to the senses, and all forms are really only different manifestations of the one true model. It should be remembered that this is beyond ordinary language and beyond ordinary thought, therefore we name it the true model.
Question 3. How then are men to follow and obey and find the way to this true model of things? Answer. One must know that although one cannot speak of this adequately, as it is beyond all expression, and although one cannot think of this adequately, as it is beyond all thought, yet we call this state the seeking after, and that when we leave ordinary thought of these things, we are entering into the gate of knowledge. Next, when using words to discuss the true model, it may be spoken of in two ways, namely, first as the unreal as compared with ordinary realities, in order eventually to show its reality, secondly, as the only real as compared with ordinary realities, because it has a nature of its own full of infinite possibilities. IA. First, then, the unreal. When we speak of the unreal, we mean that which has never been defined, which is separate from all existing forms, and which common men cannot understand. We should know the nature of this true model. It has no form, yet it is not formless. This is not saying that it is without any form, but that it is not the ordinary form. It is composed of neither ordinary, existing, nor non-existing forms. It is neither one definite form nor is it the many different forms. This is not saying that it has no definite form and that it is not in the many different forms. It is neither one nor many different forms. Generally speaking, as the world has many different notions, all false, we call this the unreal empty form. But if false notions are given up, this is then the most real.
IB. Secondly, the real. When we speak of the real, we have already explained that the true reality is apparently unreal but true, in other words, that it is the true mind, eternal and unchanged, full of purity, therefore we call it the real one. But it has no form. When the imperfect notions of things are given up, then alone can we verify this truth. 2. The eternal soul immanent in the temporary. The temporary arises from the forces of the eternal Tathagata, the uniting of the eternal with the temporary. It is neither the same nor different, but we call it the natural state of man. This natural state has two meanings, namely, that which embraces all things, and that which produces all things. The first is called the infinite enlightenment, the second the finite enlightenment.
Infinite enlightenment. By infinite enlightenment is meant that which has no false notions and is infinite like space, one with the true reality, as in instinct and intuition. This is the natural state of the incarnate true model, the Tathagata, and is called the original state of enlightenment. This is to distinguish it from acquired enlightenment, which cultivates that infinite enlightenment, for the two have the same thing in common though it is only in part. Where there is the original infinite enlightenment there exists finite enlightenment in those who seek after it. Where there exists finite enlightenment, there is more enlightenment to be acquired. Again, when one attains to the original enlightenment, it is called the perfect enlightenment. When one has not attained to the original enlightenment, it is not perfect enlightenment. For example, when an ordinary man discovers that his former ideas were wrong, and is able to prevent such ideas arising any more, such knowledge on his part, though it might be called a kind of enlightenment, is only finite. Or when those learned in the wisdom of the two lower schools, the primary and secondary, or smaller and middle, or such bodhisattvas as are beginners in the Mahayana school are enlightened so as to know that there is in one sense a difference, and in another no difference between these two classes of ideas. We call their knowledge partial enlightenment.
Or when those, such as the saints who have arrived at different stages of attainment, are enlightened to know that there is in one sense a resting place and in another sense no rest, in order to distinguish things more clearly, their knowledge is called partial enlightenment. Or when the saints have arrived at the highest attainment with all the means of deliverance completed and their thoughts are exactly in accordance with the original enlightenment, and they are enlightened to know that when the false notions began, these had no real beginning, then they escaped far from the microscopic anxious thought of things, for they are able to see the true nature of the one mind. This state is the eternal one, which we call the perfect enlightenment. Therefore, the sutra says that when one can apprehend that which is behind thought, one is on the way to Buddhist wisdom.
Again, as to the beginning of imperfect notions in the mind of men, these have no beginning. But when we speak of their beginning, we mean that they arise without thought, therefore are not called enlightened, as they have not exercised thought. As each thought has been transmitted without interruption from the beginning, and men's minds have not been able to free themselves from this, the imperfect notions have been said to be without beginning and to be finite enlightenment. If we meet a man without these thoughts, we shall then know the different stages in the development of the mind, such as beginning, resting satisfied, considering, ending, because without thought he knows that there is really no difference in kind between the enlightened neophyte's enlightenment and the original enlightenment. For the four states are coexistent and not independent, but are originally all alike different stages of one and the same enlightenment.
1. Next, original enlightenment in men appears according to the different degrees of confusion in two different states, but not separate from the original enlightenment. These different states are the state of pure wisdom and the state of unspeakable blessing where things are incomprehensible. A. The state of pure wisdom is that which exists, when, under the transforming influence of the true model, cultivating one's nature according to the true model till all departments of deliverance are completed, one reaches the state where the temporary gives way to the eternal and is grafted on to the eternal mind, manifesting itself in the three spiritual institutions of Buddha, Godhead, of law, and of priesthood, hence called the perfect and pure wisdom, because all who are dependent on the senses alone are unenlightened. Those in the unenlightened state do not depart from the nature of enlightenment, they are neither destructible so long as they depend on the original enlightenment nor indestructible when